So here's a vibe-coded fork of Electron Cache with the new UI. Because it was vibe-coded, this is not viable for anybody else. I don't recommend anyone run this. I don't expect to be able to like make a pull request even and have like humans review the code. I'm sure if we really wanted to make this happen, it would need to be coded from scratch. The original UI would need to be modified by a person, by hand, to make this happen. The reason that I even went through the trouble of doing this is because I wanted to be able to have the new UI sort of under my fingers and then be able to demonstrate it for people to show the value or not value. Maybe people will say this is totally not worth the time and effort. But anyway, this is the new UI. The biggest change you'll see is that instead of tabs, we've got these navigation buttons on the left. And then probably the other biggest change is the existence of a home page as opposed to having tabs for history, send, and receive. We've just got one home tab with a history section. It's got a receiving section. And then if you want to do the more involved payment request stuff, like actually adjust how much you're requesting, then you click create a payment request, and that takes you to the receive interface. You'll notice that I have alternating background colors for the different rows. I think it's just, especially with so many text boxes and words and symbols and stuff, it makes it a lot easier to see. And then similar with the send a transaction, because it's an important thing, I wanted a huge send a transaction button. That's one of the main reasons you're going to be opening the wallet, right? Wanted it to be really prominent. So here's the send page. Once again, I wanted the send button because that's probably the most important thing on the page to be a little bigger. I then also made it so that if you're spending from a specific UTXO, the from information ends up below here so it doesn't bump everything out of the way. Let me demonstrate. We're going to go to coins and spend. And there we go. So the inputs down here are not taking up a bunch of space in the part of the interface that we were already interacting with. And then, of course, you've got the spend fuse coins, which I made also very prominent because this is really important. I figured it should glow red when it's not checked. So let's take a look at the rest of the main interface here. So we've got a dedicated section for cash tokens. This wallet doesn't have any. And then everything that was taken care of in the file, wallet, tools, is now on the left here, and it's been reorganized somewhat. And I think it's a lot simpler this way. Wallet is how you access the coins and addresses, which were their own tabs before, but are an advanced enough thing that I don't think they need to be so readily available. And even here, they're only 3 clicks away, 1, 2, 3, or if you don't want to go all the way down to the continue, you can just double click the options here on the left. And so you've got the password, you want to see your seed words, other wallet info. So if you want to see derivation path, script type, master public key, and then also a private key. Got coins, addresses, import, export wallet data. So you got labels, contacts, invoices, transaction history, token history, scan addresses beyond the gap, and then rebuild wallet history. And then tools, we've got Cache Fusion, Flip Starter, address book, encrypt, decrypt. The other one just had message public key encrypted, and then at the bottom it was like encrypt, decrypt, or close. And it's at least going to be confusing for a new person. So what I really wanted to do was make it explicit. Basically from the top down, you decide what you do, and then the interface sort of changes to make that make sense. So when you're encrypting a message, you'll supply the message and the public key. You'll hit encrypt, and then the encrypted output will pop out, right? Whereas if you're decrypting a message, the opposite is true. And then for the sign and verify, you're going to start with a message and an address for sign a message, and then you're going to get a signature. Whereas for verify, you supply all 3 and then just click verify, right? And then invalid Bitcoin Cash address. You're darn right. The settings interface is one where I made a lot of changes and a lot of reorganization. So these were scattered about in different menus, and there's still a couple different menus you can bring up from this interface, but I think it's nice to have it all unified. So general, we've just got a couple normal things, outgoing transactions, localization sources, user interface, server connection, and this is where you can get to the server status. And then we've got the Cache Fusion settings, proxy, other. So that's most of the changes. What I do want to show, though, is also the startup wizard. So this has been pretty significantly modified. First thing you'll notice is that we have a graphical interface for selecting wallets. I think it's a little silly that we have to open up your operating system's file browser to open a wallet that isn't the most recently opened wallet. So this makes a big difference. In the previous interface, basically to create a new wallet, you would type a name for a wallet. And if that wallet didn't exist yet, then next would take you to creating that wallet. And I feel like that's just way too confusing. So we've just got next for loading wallets, right? And then we've got create wallet / startup new wallet options down at the bottom. In the previous UI, there was a couple layers of selections that unfortunately didn't make a whole lot of sense. On the top level, it would be create new wallet, but then also like import private keys. And someone might think, oh, import private keys, like I have my seed, that's what I need. But actually, no, you need to hit standard wallet, and then I already have a seed. So hiding things behind other things like that, I think, was a big detriment to the previous UI. And so now it's all pretty explicit. You can create a new wallet, you can import a seed phrase, you can set up a hard wallet, set up a multi-sig wallet. Really, create a new wallet is the one, like, 99.9% of the time people are going to be doing. Import seed phrase is the thing that, 0.099999% of the time someone's going to be doing. And then the rest are going to be really rare. But I figured hardware wallet and multi-sig at least deserved their own spot on the home screen. And then there's just other wallet options. So we've got open a file. If it's not showing up in the list on that first page, or it's somewhere else on your PC, then you can use this. And then there's the import master private key, import individual private keys, import master public key, import individual addresses. I think this just works out a whole lot nicer for a new user. We've got some copy updated. Just, I think, like saying that before you continue, make sure you're somewhere private is important before you show someone their seed words. The seed word interface, each word is now like really visually synced. It was just a text box before with 12 words in it. And I think that was a little suboptimal. You've got proper explanatory text and warning. And then the next page is basically a mirror of the previous one, where you're going to type in the words. You can hit spacebar so that you don't have to like even tab from one to the next, in case you don't know tab is how to do that. But even though it's grayed out, I think this is also a pretty important improvement. If you haven't entered your seed words, you got to be able to just continue. You basically just don't want to force users to do anything. You want to maybe strongly encourage anybody who doesn't know what they're doing to back up their seed words. But there are enough situations where you might not want to save your seed words right now that I think it's fine to provide the option with a warning to skip that. Password, and there we are, new wallet. Well, that's most of the changes. I would love to like really hunker down and learn Python so that I could do this, but for whatever reason, my own incompetence and or inability, I am not sure that that's in the cards for me. Let me know if you would contribute to a fundraiser to get this interface actually implemented. I think it would be a huge boon for Bitcoin Cash if Electron Cash were this intuitive